I'm sorry, I'm just about to go live, so I can't talk. Sorry. Hi, everybody. So we are live from the DX World Expo, Cloud Expo, DevOps Summit, Things Expo, and everything you need to know in tech today. And I happen to have the privilege today of talking now with Derek Weeks, Vice President at SonoSite. Hey, Derek, how you doing?
Hi, Andy. We're really good. Excited to be here. It's been a good day, good couple of days, in fact.
Oh, fantastic. Now, Derek, tell the world a little bit about what you do at Sonotype and what Sonotype does.
Yeah, so I'm the vice president at Sonotype. I head a lot of our community research efforts and also our community engagement efforts out in the world of DevOps and DevSecOps. And Sonotype is a provider of DevOps and DevSecOps tools. So millions of developers out there use our Nexus repository, and we also help organizations to automate their open source governance controls as part of a DevSecOps program.
Fantastic. That sounds important. I'm hearing a lot about DevSecOps. It's an important topic. We all know security is a critical topic for businesses today. Tell us a little bit more. I know you've done some research around DevSecOps. Tell us about that and your talk today.
Yeah, so I've done research for the past 4 years being at Sonotype. We run an annual survey. I also produce an annual State of the Software Supply Chain report. I think a lot of it's interesting because we've been talking to developers for a long time about security, and more recently it's caught this buzzword of DevSecOps. But security has really been something that developers have always been concerned about when we've surveyed them on, what are the top issues that you're concerned with. It's of course, am I building the right thing? Do I have the right functionality? Is it integrating with the other bits of code that I need? But also, is it secure? And security has kind of always been in the top three. In the past 5 years that we've been talking to and surveying the developer community, I think what we're seeing more and more of is that in DevOps environments, we're seeing a lot more automated security being applied into these environments. And when we, in this year's survey, when we asked organizations that identified themselves as non-DevOps versus organizations that identified themselves as DevOps, the DevOps organizations had applied automated security 335% more than non-DevOps shops. And because they're looking at, not only do I want security, but I want to look at ways to automate security and bring it into my development practices.
That's the 300+% more. That's significant. Yeah. I mean, are organisations that are not doing this? Are they just falling behind? How's that working out if you're not getting this security as a prime player, as a first-class citizen in this environment?
Yeah, so it's interesting because there's a dynamic where security has always existed in organizations, IT organizations, but it's usually bolted on to the end of the development lifecycle or focused more on the operations side of things. And that's when you finish developing your application, it's in production, we want to figure out how do we secure this thing now that it's there, because security was not embedded into the development practices from the start. Nor the security tooling wasn't built for that, and we weren't necessarily training our developers or giving them information about what was secure or what wasn't secure. I think a lot of, there's an interesting story that continues to come to mind for me, and I bring it up, is I'm talking to a head of security for a very large software development organization in San Francisco. And he says, I have to work with a DevOps team as my customer internally. And I'm going out and evaluating some tools that I can use in the market. And I have a 5-minute rule. And that is, if this tool that I'm looking at can't provide a developer helpful information within 5 minutes, I can't use it. Right? So any vendor with any kind of technology coming in the door, he said, I need to provide information to this person that's developing these applications and coding in these applications. And if they don't have information instantly that's helpful to them, then my other alternatives, like a 6-hour scan of an application, is just a tax and a burden. If I can build something in that's providing information to them instantly, it transforms the way of thinking around security of who is my customer, what is my role, how much information am I providing to these developers, how much of that can be automated, because you're certainly not doing manual checks in 5 minutes, right? So automation is a key part of that conversation.
So tell me, how does speed play into this conversation? When we're talking about attackers and security and securing your enterprise, is speed this 5 minute thing, is speed really so critical?
Yeah, so it's an excellent question. A lot of, when we hear about DevOps, we think a lot about speed and innovation and transformation and how fast things are moving. And 10 years ago, it was 10 deploys a day was ludicrous, but someone at Etsy was doing it. And then a lot of other organizations picked it up, and it was all about this, 10 deploys a day, 100 deploys a day, 100,000 deploys a day, whatever it might be. But on the security side, from a DevSecOps perspective, you're not just looking at how do we build security in as a practice just because security needs to be built in as a practice. That's an internal perspective. On an external perspective, you need to look at, there's an adversary out there, and that adversary is trying to attack you or actively attacking you in your organization, and you need to look at the speed at which they're operating. And 10 years ago, the average time between an exploit being or a vulnerability being announced and being exploited was 45 days. In 2017, it was 3 days. In 2018, it was actually 0 days. That the adversaries were figuring out not only, are these vulnerabilities out there, the exploits, like in the case of Equifax, there was a struts vulnerability. The struts team announced that there was a vulnerability. They put out a new version of that. Within 24 hours, nation states were scanning the networks at the Pentagon for that vulnerability, right? The exploits were available on ExploitDB within 24 hours of that vulnerability being announced. If you can't move faster than the adversaries, then you're open to that attack, right? So we often talk about, can you automate faster than evil? Because it's not just an internal thing like, oh, of course security should be baked in. Do you know that all of your adversaries are using automation and applying it to how to attack you, right? That's really the kind of dual challenge of security, is it's not just about quality and moving fast and building security in. You have an attacker out there that's constantly knocking on your door trying to figure out ways in, and they've gotten very sophisticated and fast at doing it.
Wow, that is a very sobering thought and very important stuff. We don't have time to go into much more of this, but tell me, where can people find you? I know you are part of the all-day DevOps community to start with.
Yeah, so we 3 years ago now, we founded All Day DevOps. You were actually part of the original core team that helped that come together in a matter of 90 days. I think we were planning initially on 1,000 people showing up, and 13,000 people showed up, which was kind of crazy. So alldaydevops.com is where that community exists of vendor pitch free DevOps knowledge that's online. And that's a great way for any organization to get DevOps education. Me personally, I'm online at Weeks Tweets. I blog very often at sonotype.com or blog.sonotype.com, so you can see any of the writing that I do there. And I'm also on LinkedIn for anyone watching.
Fantastic. Derek Weeks from SonoType, live today from Cloud Expo and the DX World Expo. For that expo, I am Andy Mann from Splunk, and we shall see you next time on DXTV.